Welcome to the UN Global Compact Network Netherlands Business and Human Rights Accelerator FAQ webinar. We are really excited to get started today and to tell you about this new program. We'll start by introducing the partners on this program, which is UN Global Compact Network Netherlands, as well as the Social and Economic Council known as the SER. So first, introduce myself. My name is Jamie Holton. I'm the Program Manager for Business and Human Rights and Gender Equality at UN Global Compact Netherlands. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the UN Global Compact, we are the largest corporate social sustainability initiative in the world, with over 16,000 plus companies across 160 countries, working in partnership with 3,800 non-business participants in a very multi-sector approach. We were launched in 2000 by former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, who reached out to a group of CEOs at Davos to initiate a global compact of shared values and principles, bringing business and the UN together to give a human face to the global market. And we think it's truly important for businesses to unite and to be a powerful force for good. We've seen that they can, and we know that important progress has been made already, but we still face issues like runaway climate change to widening inequalities. So that means our actions don't match the ambition and the pace that's necessary to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So all stakeholders must unite to transform our collective aspiration into a reality. And speaking of some of those stakeholders, I'm really excited to welcome the SER, specifically Charlotte. So Charlotte, over to you.
Yeah, hi everyone, and thanks Jamie for having me today. So before I go a little bit into who the people are that are providing the training in the coming months, maybe a little bit about why we decided to collaborate with the UN Global Compact. So I work for the Social and Economic Council, and if you're here based in the Netherlands, you probably know us as an institute that advises our government on social and economic issues. And our mission is to create a well-functioning business sector. Business and human rights is one of the key elements and is becoming more and more important. And so just to give you a little bit of a background, in 2014, our government did their own due diligence, and they issued a report with a number of high-risk sectors. And that is actually when the SER recommended and advised that we should conclude multi-stakeholder agreements that promote international responsible business conduct, and where we collaborate with not only the government, but with unions and with civil society as well. And I'm not sure if you know this, but the SER did not only help to conclude these agreements, but also helped implement these agreements. And so now, after 6.5 years already, we have gained a lot of experience in how to make due diligence practical for companies. And now that the agreements are slowly coming to an end, we have set up an expertise center that draws on this experience actually to help and to advise companies on making due diligence practical and implementing it within your own operations. And this is also something that's going to be very important with the upcoming CSR DDD. Because this law is going to contain high over standards, but do not formulate specifically how to interpret these in a specific sector or also in a specific context. And with this accelerator, we got the opportunity to share our expertise with a large group of companies. So I'm hoping that you will join us with the accelerator. So maybe a bit of a background about who we are. So we have a very knowledgeable team of senior experts. I've worked personally in the financial sector, in the clothing sector, but also now in the extractive sector. Fleur, who is also here on the call today, has a long-standing record of the textile sector, spent time in China, and has experience from a company context, but also a supplier perspective. So that's very interesting. And then we also have Martina, who is a part-time lecturer at Nijrode, and has years and years of experience with corporate social responsibility, but also with business and human rights, circular economy, and sustainability. So I think very, very, knowledgeable.
Great, thank you, Charlotte. In terms of what we'll cover today in our session, we'll give an overview of the Business and Human Rights Accelerator, what it is, who would be able to participate, and so on. We'll then have a frequently asked questions component, and that means that we're trying to cover the questions that we've received the most so far. And then we'll also have a third open Q&A section where we hand it over to all of you to see if there's any questions that you might still have after that. So first, why are we still doing this program, right? Well, that's because human rights are still at risk globally. This slide mentions a number of important human rights risks, but it's worth just highlighting a few. We know that almost 1 in 10 children are still subject to child labor. 25 million people are trapped in forced labor. We know that it would take hundreds and hundreds of years with the current pace to close the economic gap between women and men. We know that there are specific populations being targeted when it comes to human rights defenses. We know that there are millions of workers who aren't able to lift their families and themselves out of poverty, thousands dying from unsafe and unhealthy working conditions, pay gaps, people not being able to join trade unions, hundreds of millions of people being discriminated against in their workplace, and then, of course, increased workplace accidents and poor health outcomes. So we know there's still a lot to do to reduce these risks, and that's why we need to make more progress together. Now, in terms of who is actually already active, we know that a lot of our UN Global Compact members actually have a human rights policy in place already, about 90% from a recent survey that we did. We also know from the World Benchmarking Alliance that a lot of companies have social responsibility business conduct commitments, but they aren't able to necessarily demonstrate those commitments into tangible actions. And the same with our UN Global Compact members. We know that only a small part, about 18%, are actually doing human rights impact assessments. So we know there's still a lot of things we need to work on here, and that business is not necessarily walking the talk just yet when it comes to human rights. Now, John Ruggie, who was the special representative for business and human rights to the former Secretary General Kofi Annan, he had a really powerful quote, in my opinion, which was, "No company that I know of has ever said we don't respect human rights." My question was, how do you know that you do respect human rights? And can you show that you do? Do you have systems in place that would allow you to back that claim? And that's what we hope to achieve with this Business and Human Rights Accelerator. Now, in terms of what it is, it's a 6-month program to support our overall objective of moving the global business community from policy to action to respect and support human rights by enacting an ongoing human rights due diligence process and setting concrete targets to address the most salient human rights risks within those businesses. There's a few other high-level objectives, but the key outcome, of course, is to model the process of human rights due diligence so that you can start to understand and put into place the key elements of the UN guiding principles. We know that 6 months is not going to be a silver bullet to solve human rights risks, but we do know that it will give a foundation to help you start addressing the most salient ones, and then to help set you up for success if you want to address further issues in your supply chain going forward. Now, in terms of what you will learn, you will be able to identify your responsibilities in respecting human rights and labor rights. Those are expressed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the ILO's Declaration on Fundamental Principles and Rights at Work, able to establish an ongoing human rights due diligence process in line with international standards, such as the OECD guidelines as well. How to report and communicate on your human rights due diligence journey, including through the communication of progress, which is a requirement for all of the UN Global Compact participants. And then, of course, in terms of outcomes, what you will get out of this program is you will get clarity over where your company is on its human rights journey, an understanding of what it takes to meet the expectations of the UN guiding principles, which is policy commitment, human rights due diligence, remedy and grievance mechanisms for when there are human rights abuses that occur within your business, tools to assess your salient, otherwise known as the most severe human rights impacts, a clear understanding of stakeholder engagement and how to go about this and who to involve, and then guidance on developing an action plan to actually address those salient issues, as well as a network of peers who are participating with you in the program, of UN partners and experts to support your human rights journey. And of course, everyone who completes the program will get a certificate demonstrating the completion of this program. Now, how we will go about the learning experiences, in terms of the Business and Human Rights Accelerator, you can understand it as having content before, during, and after sessions. In terms of before, we will have an online e-learning platform available for all of our members that can watch pre-recorded on-demand content for this program specifically. That's also been created together with Shift, which is also a global partner on this program with UN Global Compact. Then in terms of the actual sessions that you will be able to attend, we'll have global deep dive technical sessions that are hosted by Shift. We'll have peer learning sessions, which are also facilitated interactive sessions with just your cohort of your local network. So it would be our Dutch participating companies, and you'll be able to exchange practices, to receive feedback on your progress, come forward with the challenges that you might have experienced in terms of addressing human rights risks. And then, of course, we might also do any additional localization sessions where required. I like to say where demanded. So where the demand is within our group, we'll also be able to tailor specific sessions that may not be covered by any of the other global sessions or peer learning sessions that we might have. And then after those sessions, there will be what we call working sessions, which is really the homework phase, where the participants will work on activities based on the previous sessions and start to actually implement some of the learnings and put them into practice. And then within the regional and global deep dive sessions, there will also be global experts that we invite, and also maybe in the local peer learning sessions as well, depending on the content that seems to be most important for our participants. Now, in terms of online versus in person, all of the global deep dive sessions will be done via Zoom. Of course, the e-learning content will all be online. And in terms of the local peer learning sessions, most of those will be online as well, but we would like to have maybe 2 in-person sessions where you can meet each other at the beginning and also at the end, meet each other to discuss your progress in the experience of the program together. We will make the recording and slides available of the different sessions that were held at the global level and also our own local peer learning sessions. In terms of the timeline, as we said, it's a 6-month program. It'll be from February until June of 2023. The sign up for the deadline for the sign up this year, it's the 16th of December. So any company who wants to participate next year will have to sign up this side of the year. That also gives us a bit of time to see, who's joining, how can we tailor the content specifically to our participants. And then we'll have a 6-month program where each month we'll have a different stage of learning. And within each stage, there will be the e-learning, the global deep dive, a peer learning session, and of course, the homework working session as well. And the companies, you can access the e-learning before each session, so that'll help you refresh any knowledge that you might already have or to prepare for the specific sessions. And then within the peer learning session, as mentioned, you can bring your own challenges, questions, examples, anything specific to the Netherlands in terms of our context that we'll be able to help you out with. And then you will be able to build on those learnings from the different sessions and the online learning within your own working session where you can work together to implement some of those lessons. During the offboarding period, which will be after June, we will have an opportunity for companies to present their action plans globally. That will be organized at the global level. So throughout the program, we'll get more information about this. But this also is a really nice opportunity to increase your visibility and to show your leadership on this topic with the other companies that are participating globally on this program. Now I'll turn to Charlotte to discuss the specific content that we'll cover in these 6 months.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. So I think you covered quite a lot in the introduction that you just gave. As you said, it's going to take 6 months, and from our experience, implementing a human rights due diligence system, it's quite complex. And what we will try to do with you is to make it as practical as possible so that at the end of the course, you have a concrete idea of what you can do within your own company and take actions immediately if you will. So not everybody will start from scratch, but we want to make sure that everybody has the same baseline and of the concepts that we're using. So that's why we're starting with an introduction to the UNGPs and human rights due diligence processes, and then take it step by step to really break down the whole of the process that is human rights due diligence, and start by assessing your risks, by knowing what, where, and how you produce, get an overview of your potential risks, then go into your actual risks, and also learn how you can prioritize, and know what you can do to tackle those or mitigate them, by creating an action plan. We also are curious to learn, as Jamie said, we can tailor the issues to your needs, but we also want to get some more insight about maybe what kind of tools or things that you might need to make it helpful, because during the 6.5 years of implementing the agreements, we have created a lot of templates and tools that might be beneficial for you as well. So if you sign up and join the course, we would like to hear from you as well. And we will also, at the end, during stage 5, we also have some room to talk about effective stakeholder engagement. What does that mean? How do I talk to my supplier, but also workers and other affected stakeholders within the supply chain? And at the final stage, we're also going to look at access to remedy, and seeing what you can do there. Also in cases where you maybe don't have enough leverage, but have some action points to remediate impacts in your supply chain. So that's maybe in short, without copying what you said, Jamie. Then maybe going into, before this a Q&A session, Jamie got a number of questions already that would be good to tackle already. So one of the questions was, so our company already has a due diligence or human rights due diligence system in place. Should we still join the Accelerator? And I think the answer is yes, because there's always something to learn, but also something to share with other companies, and you can learn from each other. And I think this Accelerator gives you the opportunity to test your understanding of the process, to raise questions if you might have some, well, to learn from other companies, as I just said, but also to discuss dilemmas that you can find in your everyday practice, right? Because there might still be some cases where the guidelines do not give specifics, and we can hash them out together and see if we can, formulate a way forward. Then what is the benefit of combining companies from different sizes and sectors? Well, what we have seen is that, complex global supply chains and many human rights issues are systemic, and they often require a cross-industry collaborative approach to address them. And by putting all of these companies together of sizes and sectors, you can learn about good practices from each other, and take steps to tackle them on a range of similar issues. And I also, what we have seen is that sometimes companies can be part of each other's supply chain. So you might have larger companies and the smaller are part of their supply chain. So it's also good to learn from each other's perspective what you can engage or see when doing this. And then maybe lastly, does the Accelerator cover various regional and country legislation? So I think there's more space to talk about this in the regional and local peer-to-peer learning sessions. So yes, and we can also then touch a bit upon the CSRD, which we gave a webinar on last week, but also the CSR Triple D.
Great. Thank you so much, Charlotte. And anyone, if you have questions already, please feel free to put them in the chat. I will now answer some of the most frequently asked admin-related questions. So one question we get a lot, which is very understandable, is does the program cost money? And the answer for that is no. The program is free for our UN Global Compact members. Membership, however, is a mandatory requirement. So if you aren't a member just yet of our network, please feel free to contact my colleague, Monica Pasquale. I've put her email address here. She'll be able to tell you what's needed to join. But because our members pay a small annual membership fee, we as a network in the Netherlands thought we would like to offer this program for free. So if you are already a member, there's no added costs. In terms of who should participate and what the time commitment is, now in general, 3 people from the company should be involved. The ones that are most active in the program will be the 2 participants. We recommend that 2 participants join because they can then divide and conquer the program. We know that everyone's schedule is really busy already, but by having 2 people, if someone can't attend, the onboarding session or the other specific sessions, you can then alternate and continue that learning together. So across the 2 of you, you'll be able to attend and share knowledge, complete the e-learning, the global sessions, the peer learning sessions, and then the offboarding where companies can present their action plans. We expect that between the 2 participants, all of the sessions are attended. But also very importantly, we have experienced with our other accelerators that having 2 people from your company will help give you a sparring partner so that you can discuss dilemmas together, discuss potential ways of implementing change within your companies. So it also is just very helpful to embed some of the practices in your company. We recommend that the participants in this program come from the field of sustainability, supply chain, human resource, governance and risks, corporate social responsibility, and corporate affairs. It will really depend on your own company, depending on your supply chain, what it looks like. Maybe if you're a software company, it'll look more like data and privacy officer, look more at the end users and the customers. So it is up to the companies themselves and what you hope to get out of this program. But ultimately, it would be people who work on an area where there might be human rights risks. So that would be important to keep in mind. On average, we think the 2 participants will spend across 50 hours on this program over the 6 months, which translates to about 2 hours a week. Some weeks it will be a bit more if there are the global sessions or a peer learning session, and some weeks it might be a bit less. So keep that in mind. And of course, we do see a lot that sometimes there's one primary participant and then there's sort of a shadow participant who can jump in when the first one isn't available. But that's our experience. And then the 3rd person who will be involved will be the ambassador. And that really will be the internal sponsor for the program and support the work of the participants. So this would be someone at the executive or senior level management in a position that can help impact a company's human rights due diligence journey. So sometimes we see CEOs, sometimes we see, other types of roles at senior management level, but really it would need to be someone who can help embed some of the practices and can help the participants to implement some of the changes in the governance of the company. On average, we see that it would take about 10 hours of the ambassador's commitment across the 6 months. They wouldn't have to attend any sessions, but we would recommend that they attend the onboarding session, just so they have an idea of what the program will be and what the participants will be working on. And then the other hours would be spent on, conferring with the participants to see how they're doing, what their recommendations are for the company, and to help embed that within the company. Now, what language will the accelerator be in? We have decided to conduct the accelerator in English. We have had some interest from companies who have employees that don't speak Dutch. And based on that knowledge, we've decided to hold it in English. Of course, if there are any breakout sessions, during some of our peer learning sessions, or if there are the in-person events and you have side conversations with people, if you are comfortable speaking in Dutch, you're very welcome to. But to make sure that everyone can join the main content, the plenary sessions, we've decided to hold those in English. Now, in terms of which local networks are running this Accelerator program next year, it's actually quite a few. It's about 36 local networks. Some have actually partnered up to do them together. So there are a lot of companies who are doing this globally. It's the first time we're rolling this out, but that also means that we can really tailor it to what you might need. And just in case your company might be interested in joining in other countries, or maybe through the global track or the Latin America track or African track, I thought it would be important to mention that if you have your company active in other countries who aren't on this list, they are still welcome to join the global track, the Latin America track or the Africa track, which is really for those companies who are based somewhere where there aren't local networks that are participating in the program. So when you are participating in the global track or the Latin America or Africa track, you will be able to join and access all of the e-learning content, the global sessions, but you wouldn't have maybe the peer learning sessions that are in local time zones, but everything else will be the same in terms of content. So that might be interesting to share with any other offices that you might have. So in terms of what's next, really the next step would be to sign up. Of course, we would love for you to join our program. We have a few companies who've already signed up, so slots are filling up soon. We have about 20 companies that we'd like to take with us on this journey. And if you have any questions directly for me, feel free to contact me via this email address. Just a note, if you would like to sign up, you will need your company participant ID. So for those of you who are already a member and are familiar with this, for the Academy, for instance, it would be helpful to look up this company participant ID. If you can't find it, or if you would like me to send it to you, please feel free to send me an email as well, and I can look that up for you. But with that, that was the main part of this session. We'd now like to open the floor for a Q&A. So please feel free to send any questions in the chat, or to raise your hand or unmute, and then we hopefully can answer any questions that you still might have at this stage. So opening the floor.
I would be happy to ask one question. Thank you very much for this introduction to the Accelerator. I was wondering whether you can tell us a little bit more about the sectors that would participate or expected to participate. The reason I'm asking this is that I work as a lawyer and therefore hold an advisory role. So I'd be interested in knowing a bit more about, well, whether this accelerator is not only useful for me, for my firm, in the sense that we look at our own practice and we're questioning what we can do within our own firm, but also whether the accelerator is suitable in view of potentially helping other companies or clients perform their due diligence review, or at least signal points of attention.
Thank you, Elsa. That's a really great question. I think we have decided to really open this up for companies across all sectors, because we think all companies have room for improvement, and at least being able to identify where the human rights risks might be, we would like to offer that to everyone. So I think there's definitely an opportunity to engage in that way. Maybe Charlotte, do you have any specific ideas when it comes to, sort of law and how lawyers and law firms might be able to benefit from this?
What I believe is that the general idea or the general notion of doing due diligence is something you learn within this accelerator, and I think that's something that law firms will also benefit from. I think we will also touch a little bit upon the CSRD, which I think a lot of questions are going to come up, which is also very relevant, I think, for the law firm. I'm not sure in which kind of sectors they're working, but I do feel that just the general notion is very interesting, and I think that sectors differ from each other, but in the end, there are also a lot of, similarities between the things that they experience. So I think from that idea, it will be still interesting to join.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Perhaps would after this session it be possible to contact one of you to also think this through a bit further? Would that be
Yeah,
possible?
sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine. Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elsa. Thanks, Charlotte. I'm seeing a couple of questions come into the chat. The first is from Laura. If the company is working in several European countries, does it make a difference if we join, for instance, the German or the Dutch local network? Is there a difference from legal perspective? And am I right that we can freely choose the local network? Yes, you're welcome to join as many local networks Human Rights Accelerator program as you wish. Of course, this just means that everyone within the company across different countries gets skilled up on this topic. So I would even recommend joining multiple if you can, of course, with different colleagues. Yeah, there will be some content specific to the countries that your companies are operating in. So for instance, I know that the German network will focus more on, say, the German Supply Chain Act, which is specific to Germany. I know that we're going to talk maybe more about upcoming national legislation within the Netherlands. So there would be that benefit to having the local context from the specific local networks. So I hope that answers your question. And
She's
then
also asking if she can choose which network.
Yeah,
Yes.
you now just said that we can also, or that it's recommended to choose more than one local network. Does that also mean that those monthly meetings are with both groups then?
The global content will all be the same. So the online content, the global technical sessions, if you will, by shift, will all be the same across all local networks. So they are also at the same time. It's just the peer learning sessions within the different countries that would be specific to the local networks that you might be participating in there. So that might be at different days, different times, depending on how the local networks decide. But the global content will all be the same. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Laura. And then I see a question by Eina Okada. My company is based in the Netherlands, but my parent company in Tokyo, Japan, is the member of the Global Content Compact. Is my company, a subsidiary of Nikon, eligible? I believe you would be, as long as the Global Compact member is registered. So if that's in Japan, then you're still welcome to join as a subsidiary in the Netherlands. If you sign up and experience any issues, please do feel free to reach out, and then I'm able to help with any complications there. But in theory, yes, we welcome all subsidiary companies, even if their sort of parent company is the main member of the Global Compact. Shirley has a question. Does the accelerator mainly focus on producing companies, or is it also interesting for service providers? Again, here we also think it would be very interesting for service providers. We also think it would be interesting, say, for network or software companies who focus more on data privacy and things that we don't typically associate with a supply chain. I think the main thing to keep in mind here is that supply chains are a common area where there could be human rights risks, but there could also be human rights risks in other companies who have a value chain. So I think as long as there's a value chain, there could be a great benefit of joining this program and learning more about where human rights risks may be. So I hope that helps your question.
Yeah, maybe to add, Jamie, that it's just that the risk will differ. When you're producing company, your risks are different, but there's still risks also when you're a service provider. Yeah.
Can I also ask a question? I'm Nadia Cicek from Accelerator. I was wondering, thank you for this opportunity. I think it's a great opportunity for all companies to learn more about the UNGPs and try to implement the practice. I'm just wondering, from my point of view, like we have done human rights impact assessment of our own operations, of our business relationship, direct and indirect procurement, et cetera, et cetera. And we've also made action plans on how to implement them, prioritize based on the severity criteria in the UNGPs, also have assessed our grievance mechanism when it comes to effectiveness criteria, etc. And I was wondering, because it's very much in line with all the steps you're also envisioning in the course. However, we have already done a lot of those steps, and my added value from this course would very much be in bringing that further with the help of Shift. So I was wondering, in what way is Shift involved, and do you really have those deep dive sessions, or is it very much focused on the standard approach, and then you also have like a standard support of Shift, or is it very specific business support in that regard?
Thanks, Nadia. Thanks for that question. And thanks for sharing that. I think it's really exciting to hear that there are companies who are also just, working a lot on this topic and want to advance even more. So that's great to hear. In terms of Shift, so Shift is the global partner on this program with us. So they provide all of the technical deep dives. So they will be able to go into very specific details for, the specific sectors or the specific questions that you might have. So for that reason, I would say it's a great opportunity to connect with them, just to learn from them in the global sessions, but also then, of course, we do want to stimulate this community. So we would also be able to put you in touch with, the Shift speakers or facilitators directly to see if there's any questions that you have after those sessions that you want to address together. So we definitely would be able to put you in touch and to benefit from Shift's experience as well. Also with the Netherlands Shift branch, that would be possible.
Exactly. So we could also get support from them then off record as well. It's not only during the sessions.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. And from my understanding, just to be very clear, like what are the outcomes that you expect from this? Do you need to have specific results that we need to show you every month, or what is the idea behind it?
Sure. So we do think at the end of the program, we expect companies to submit an action plan on their human rights due diligence that they want to start implementing. So of course, if you already have one, it could be for maybe a new area or a new sharpening of areas that you'd like to implement. Other than that, during the working sessions, it's really for your participants to see, okay, how can we address this? At the end, then implement in the human rights due diligence action plan. We won't necessarily, check every month the work that you've done, unless, of course, you have questions about it and you need help. Then that would be a way for us to engage and to see if we can offer more support. And of course, in the peer learning sessions, if you have any questions that you've been struggling with, then we can see if we can help you directly in that way. So that's kind of how directly we get in touch with, the specific work that you're doing throughout the program. I hope that helps a little bit.
Yes, thank you.
Maybe one question about this. Are we getting any feedback from you when we hand in our action plan in the end, so that we get like professional feedback from you?
Yes, that is the idea. That is what we're hoping to do. Of course, it depends on how long everyone's action plans will be. But I think the general idea is that we would help review and to have a look. But also, it depends on how much feedback you want. I know there's some companies who might say, actually, we're quite happy with this. We've now agreed on this with our ambassador. And then we say, great, if that works for you, that's wonderful. But if you want specific feedback on action plans or drafts, then we would be ready for you to help with that.
All right, thank you.
Great, thanks, Laura. Anything you'd like to add, Charlotte, so far? I know there's a few more questions that we can still cover, but up until
no, I agree. We can give input, and it's something that we have done a long time, monitoring different companies and assessing their action plans. I just need to make a disclaimer that if people are going to hand in reports that cover like 100 pages, which we have seen, and that we're not able to comment on everything, but maybe like the key things of the action plan, we can do that certainly.
Great. I agree.
Can I add to that as well, Jamie?
Yes, go for it.
No, so I think what Charlotte is saying is absolutely true, especially with specific questions. I think based on our experience, it will be easy to give feedback. I think if you want to make a full assessment, if you really have done all 6 steps properly, that means you would really need to have a full scope idea of the company in terms of turnover, production facilities, etc., etc. So I think that will not be part of the program. However, with specific questions, I think we can be really much of help, and also share examples of others who have done specific elements very well. But always it's very important to keep in mind the specifics of a company, where, what, and how they're buying. And that's, yeah, really determines on how you do your due diligence process.
Thanks, Fleur. Great. There's a few other questions in the chat that I'm hoping we can cover. One is by Amanda. For financial institutions, our due diligence process is different than companies from the real economy. I'd like to know if there are many financial institutions interested in this program. Well, we have quite a few financial institution members in our UN Global Compact network, including in the Netherlands. So we have a lot of experience working with financial institutions on this topic, including ABN AMRO, ING, and a few others. So Pro Capital, for instance, is another one that helps financial institutions and is involved in that sector. So I think there's definitely interest in this, specifically because the due diligence process is not just from, an auditing point of view, but the human rights point of view. So definitely think it would be interesting for that perspective. So I hope, Amanda, that answers your question. Feel free to put that in the chat if you'd rather not unmute. And then there's another question from Amanda. Are you disclosing any of the information from these working sessions or participants in the Accelerator program? So I hope I understand your question. So whether we'll share anything that's been shared in the, throughout the program by participants, if we'll share that globally or externally. Generally, we don't. The only thing we would ask, for instance, is if we find inspirational practices, or, if you had a really powerful statement, we might ask afterwards, we thought that was really important and valuable that we could maybe share with other companies or on our website, then we would ask for permission first. But generally, this content would only stay among our participating companies. Of course, at the end, during the offboarding, when we have the opportunity to present action plans, that would be something that you could choose to put out publicly as well. So that would be an opportunity to do that, but it's not a requirement to make the action plans public. Great. Thank you, Amanda. And then Lotte, she has just left, but Lotte from LC Packaging, she has done the SDG Accelerator and the Climate Accelerator before with us and thought those were very inspiring. So she's very much looking forward to this one. She's signed up, so that's really great to hear. And especially because those programs have helped shape the company strategy. So that's really what we try to do. We know lots of companies have policies and commitments, but we really try to create that practical guidance to have very tangible, concrete targets at the end and concrete action plans that you can actually help move the company's needle forward when it comes to human rights. So that is definitely one of the key things we try to do throughout this program. Just checking if there are any other questions at this point.
Jimmy, you're muted.
Thanks, Charlotte. There's a few more people in the waiting room that we have, in the room that we haven't heard of, but I hope that means there's no other questions. So with that, I think we might just be able to close a bit earlier and say thank you so much for joining. Please feel free to connect with us directly. This is my email address, holton@gcnetherlands.nl. And then, of course, if you had any questions for Charlotte as well, we can have a follow-up conversation or an email exchange to answer anything that wasn't maybe discussed during this session or that maybe comes up later as you think about this more. It would be important to mention that the deadline for signing up for the program is the 16th of December. So please do sign up when you can. And of course, you're very welcome to share this recording, which we'll share with you after the session with any of your colleagues to maybe help make the case to join this. So contacting us is always optional and very much something we would encourage. But for now, I just want to thank you for attending, and I'll return some of your time this afternoon to you. So thanks so much, Charlotte and Fleur, for joining from the SARE.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia, also for helping in the wings. And then we wish everyone a really great rest of your afternoon. Thank you so much.